This is one of the most well-designed Euros I've played in a very, very long time. It's really good. And this is actually only 30 to 45 minutes. Shallow Sea is all about building your own coral reef as you place down tiles and fish, placing things in the correct orientation, and eventually flipping over said tiles for points. It's low conflict with lots of thinky. It's not shallow at all. Oh, it's also beautiful looking. It's playable between 1 to 4 players, and we played it 3 times for this review, twice solo and once 2-player. Now, this is a sponsored review, and as always, being sponsored does not affect scoring, but totally understand if you want to click off. We're covering the Kickstarter version of this game, but Shallow Sea is in retail because I saw it at my FLGS the other day here. This box also comes with an included mini expansion, a rare fish mini expansion, but we didn't try this, so we won't be talking about it for this review, but there's still plenty to talk about here as we get into the how to play. Goal is to get the most points by the time the game ends, which is when every player has exactly 4 empty spaces left in their ocean. To get points, you can pursue the 2 main objectives, like scoring points for having completed coral have fish of the same color. Oh yeah, completing coral and sea life is actually the main way to get points, and they'll get achieved slightly differently. Coral is achieved by having the matching color of fish around it. Sea life is a bit more picky. They have certain instructions, like have 3 completed corals around them that all have different fish, or have 3 matching coral in this general direction. Every turn, all you do is take 1 tile and 1 fish. The tile can either be from the top, which is the coral, or the bottom, which is sea life. Then you take the fish that is closest to it. The tile goes into your player board, neighboring your existing tiles, which means they share a corner or edge. This can now be rotated in any way. Then the fish can be placed in any bubble around where you have tiles. When you meet any tile's completion conditions, you must flip the tile before your turn ends. Now have those points for endgame and gain a seashell no matter what the type flipped. If it was a coral, one of the fish around it must go on it. If it was a sea life, nothing happens, it just flipped over. Also on your turn as a free action, before or after you take tiles, you can spend 2 seashells to move a fish from a bubble to another bubble. But more on these seashells, which are like money, later. But yeah, that's the bare bones for your turn. Just grab a tile and fish, place them, flip anything if its conditions have been met, then make sure to refresh the center tile and fish area. The moment everyone has only 4 blank spaces left, that's it. Game over, then count up the points to see who had the best reef. Pros! Shallow Sea has some of the most functional and beautiful components I've ever seen in a board game. First, the tiles are really thick. Whew, they feel even better than FFG tiles of old. And the Sea Life tiles, which are the ones you only select a few of for every game, all have their own plastic trays. Holy cow, this helps so much with setup and takedown, and it looks like they even have some empty space for expansions. I found that if you just alphabeticalize the tiles, it makes your little OCD part of your brain feel satisfied. Then for the 3 things you're randomizing all game, coral, fish, and sea life, these all have their own baggies. And these aren't some boring, drab black bags. They went the whole country mile and put cute designs on all of them. So wholesome, and they're actually big enough to put your hand inside and shuffle them. Especially helpful for that coral where there's just so many tiles. The fishies are also real cute. They're actually different designs printed on both sides. So they're so clear to tell apart and they just pop on your board. In fact, Shallow Sea has some impeccable color design, where all coral is immediately clear what color it is and needs. Then when you flip it and even put fish on the top, you can still easily tell the color of tile. The sea life is also surprisingly easy to see, like it's either matching or not, coral or not. So you can see it even when it's rotated in all sorts of directions on your board. Add in the nice art on the scoring cards and then these nice seashells. Oh, they even have a space on your board to go. And you have a game that physically feels really good to play as you touch all the chunky tiles and wooden pieces. Then at the end of the game, you have a nice looking coral reef with bright fish and diverse sea life hanging out. Endgame, the scoring pad even devises scoring by section, which sounds like a small thing, but we found this to be fantastic and not getting you confused ever. Last thing for components is that the rulebook is exceptional. Never had any questions while going through it, with plenty of examples and even a nice appendix with even more examples of scoring cards. Shout out to all the coral reef information at the back too. Seriously though, other designers, please look at this rulebook and how to explain your game. It felt like no word was wasted with precise writing. Gameplay pros time. The first is the interplay of coral, sea life, and fish. It's really done at how they all play off each other for some really captivating, puzzly gameplay that makes you question every single adjacency and tile placement. So even more info dump on them, go. Coral gives flat points. They require fish to flip and consume fish. Sea life gives scaling points. They require coral to be completed in a specific way to flip, but they don't consume any fish. But they sometimes may ask for fish to be in a certain arrangement. Fish are the foundation for both tiles, as they're fuel. You need fish for coral, and you need coral for sea life. They're the only thing in your board that's movable, but also they get spent to pay for coral, so the amount you have on your board is not always going up. They also want coral around them for endgame points. As you're filling your board, you really have to quickly decide what sea life you can actually fulfill, then seeing where fish should end up to fulfill those, to do a coral and also do some of the sea life. After all, once you've completed a coral, you can choose any of the surrounding fish to live in the coral, then the rest just stick around so you can use them for another coral. Or maybe they're blocking another coral from being completed. Oh shoot. The sea life are all straightforward to understand and are diverse enough to fulfill. Problem is that they're actually tricky to do. One nice reason is that there's limited quantities of each type. For example, in 2 players, you only have 2 of these, so no mindlessly reusing the same pattern for points. Then you only have 17 turns, so there's a push your luck in grabbing sea life tiles instead of coral on a turn to see how many you can complete before the game ends. It's also nice that certain tiles that ask for adjacencies never let you double dip on more than one of the same completed coral. Actually, I decided to take a closer look at all the coral and was really impressed with what I found. So every single coral is different, where they'll always ask for their color and then another color. And in the sake of the 7-pointer, the most common one, sometimes will ask for 2 more colors. What does this mean for gameplay? Well, you're pretty incentivized to expand your horizons even when pursuing one color. It's really easy to go, oh, wait, this is asking for orange, so I could also go for an orange tile. Or since I'm asked for green, I could go for a green tile now. It makes pivoting between colors really seamless and also highly rewards players who know which coral piece is exactly the right fit for them, and so they can hold out on placement until then. Thus, with the tiles that ask for matching coral or different coral, there's a really neat push and pull of whether to stay within a certain color of coral or to pivot. About half of the sea life asks for fish, and this adds another brain twist because now you can double dip with using the same tiles for coral and fish on top completion. Now, not only do you have to fulfill that color of coral in the exact right place, but you also have to make sure the exact color of fish ends up on top. But maybe you needed those fish for other tiles. Oh, it sounds so simple to just ask for a certain fish on top, but it's actually quite tricky to pull off efficiently, and it's some brilliant design in how fish living in coral can be crucial for sea life. The next gameplay pro is the seashell usage, which is also very well done. So these are like money to pay for certain actions, like if you want to clear one of the rows here and replace it, or you want to spend to take a fish and something from another column, or spend seashells to move fish on your board. These all just greatly expand the already great fundamentals of tiling, so let's get into all of it. Clearing the takeables really lets you mitigate RNG well, as you clear the row, get the replacement 5, then put the cleared things back in their bag. So if you're really fiending for a certain color of fish, you're actually rewarded in going like, hey, I know there's 14 of them in 2 players, so if there's 10 on both of our boards, there must be 4 in the bag. So maybe I do have a shot in seeing one if I clear. But what is a lot more efficient is to break the grab. So now you can take a fish from any column when taking a tile. And this really just explodes the possibility of a turn without adding really any rules overhead, because one seashell is cheap. You get all the time from flipping tiles, but getting that perfect color at the perfect time at a slight cost is totally worth it to get those tiles flipped. Then you can free up your fish on your board for another coral. These 2 things to spend seashells on while you're tile grabbing makes it so that you're really never out of options. And no more complaining about, oh, the center flip screwed me over, because you can pretty much always clear one of these rows and get something out of it, especially if you're tile counting. There's also an amazing rule if that there's ever 4 of any of the same color here, like 4 purple coral here, well then you can just clear it without spending any seashell. So yeah, the grabbing here will never really become stagnant unless the players want it to. The final way to use seashells is to spending 2 to move fish, which you're probably going to do to complete coral reefs. This seashell usage is crucial to keep the game flowing on your player board, and it'll feel good for newcomers, as without it, the board would be fairly stagnant and punishing. Now pretty much all fish are fair game to move, and you can do this before you grab a tile. Now note that it's 2 seashells to do this, as opposed to 1 to grab a fish from any column when grabbing tiles. So it's more efficient to just place correctly as you get better at the game. This is also a nice, feels good spending of final seashells to move fish near coral for the MVP, making boards feel more thematic and further removing a need for seashells to be worth points endgame for clearer scoring. Next gameplay pro is that the combo feeling in this game is incredible. Because remember how we talked about the seashells being used to do a bunch of things? Well, you get a seashell every time you flip a tile. But then you're usually spending seashells to flip tiles. And when you flip a coral, sometimes that also meant you fulfilled a sea life prerequisite, so now you flip 2 things. Getting to flip multiple times also makes it so that you're very rarely empty on seashells for continued puzzling on them. And if you're not spending seashells, you'll quickly cap out at 5, so you're really encouraged to continually spend them to keep the game's pace even. This all adds up to a game that has a very simple turn structure and is quite accessible to pick up. But there's a lot of really deep thinking within this simple framework. Because actually, at the bare minimum, every turn is just, take a tile and take a fish next to it. That's it. But even that alone is 10 actions. There's 10 different possibilities just from saying one tile, one fish here. And when you place a tile, you can rotate it in any direction, and your fish can go anywhere next to tiles on your board. Plus you can clear the grabbing section, or you can start moving fish around. Because of tile adjacencies and mapping out how you could actually fulfill a Sealife tile, or maybe 2, or maybe 3 come late game with these patterns, this Euro ramps up in headspace so fast. Like it's even on turn 3 where you're already freaking out about possible fish placement. But this game still runs really true to 30 to 45 minutes, at least with 2 players, and probably after your first game. In my single player game, I got it in about 30 minutes-ish, in my second game. How could this be the case? How could you have all this complexity with not that much time? Well, one is that it's always 17 actions, no matter what. So yeah, the game won't drag unless someone is really APing. However, the game also doesn't induce an insane amount of AP because every time you flip a tile, it's pretty much out of the game until endgame scoring. And coral will take a fish with it. So even though you're technically adding more possibilities as you place, the board state doesn't really get that much more complicated than how it is in mid-game. Also, a nice little design trick here is that they're essentially combining 2 actions into one, where you take a tile and a fish, 2 things. And so sometimes when you don't even need one or the other, you have to take it anyways. So it can be used for fuel later on. And again, as mentioned in pros, endgame scoring is really easy, and setup and takedown isn't bad at all for randomizing the Sealife tiles because of these handy dandy tile trays. Replayability pros. So we actually haven't mentioned them too much, but there's 2 scoring objectives that can give you extra points end game. So there's 7 of each of these, which is 14 in total. So you can really just switch these out. They do change the game quite a bit if you're really serious about points, like getting rewarded for Sealife building in columns, or having Sealife adjacent to each other, or having sets of 3 matching fish, 1 fish, 2 fish, blue fish, green fish. And you can see that there's 2 trays. So there's 22 types of Sealife tiles, and you're only picking 10. So yeah, just mix and match these to how you want. We just use the guide at the back of the rules. There's a good amount of possibilities here. I kid you not, the Sealife that requires 3 matching coral in a line next to it is so hard. Remember, the board is pretty small. For some extra fun modes, there's a family mode for easier endgame scoring where it takes away objectives too. Honestly, if you're not a super hardcore Euro player, this might be the best first game. Then there's cute achievements if you really get into playing this a lot. And get into this you can do, with the solo mode being one of the cleanest I've ever seen in a Euro. Because there's no automa. There's no bot. Haha, yes, this is brilliant. No more managing a deck and managing a mini player after your turn. Now it's just a single card that is an outlet for seashells. You essentially get 2 free seashells as you grab fish from the bag to fill the card up to 2 times, which is a nice twist to mess with fish probabilities. If you want more seashells, there's also 1 more fish per, and you lose 2 points per. So they basically replace another player taking stuff from the middle to maybe counterplay you and keep the middle flowing, to now the solo mode just gives you more agency and way less bookkeeping. And also the endgame scoring is pretty much exactly the same, like you don't have to count up for a bot. The last pro is that the shallow sea theme of this beautiful barrier reef being built up meets the Euro gameplay really well. Yeah, there's really isn't always easy to do in Euro. Like a lot of Euros just have the theme kind of plastered on. Here, there's a story and progression and ending that actually makes sense. So you're building coral, and as it gets completed, the fish find a nice home in them. As coral patterns emerge and or certain patterns of fish, it attracts sea life who start hanging out nearby. How close and what they like depends on the species. At the end of the game, the more coral is around fish, the better they feel for more points. You can actually get more points for having more diverse types of sea life. Woohoo! Healthy ocean! Oh, also every single coral being slightly different is pretty cool thematically because every coral is different. Cons. First con is the only small problem with the components is that there should have been some type of aid to remind you on the seashell spending. It'd probably be best printed on the board here next to the seashells, where you're putting the seashells. I understand why they probably didn't put this on because by your second game, it's pretty easy to grasp what the seashells do. But in your first game, it would have been really nice to see the distinction between 1 seashell, clear, 2 seashells, move fish. Okay, if we're really being picky, the game could have included 4 plastic bags to divide all the fish, as since storing them all together in the main bag is gonna be icky, you're gonna have to pour them all out, and then count up the ones you need for each game, and then put the rest away, I guess pouring them out because you need the bag. If you have the fish all in their own plastic bag, you can just cleanly count how many you need for every game. Easy. The next and final con, which is also not a big one, which is that there's going to be some downtime in multiplayer because this game is based off of spending seashells to do combos. So yeah, inherently someone's turn could just keep going on and they're thinking harder and harder as they're gaining more seashells and then spending them. Oh, look, I got more seashells. Okay, well, it's more to think about, more. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's pretty easy to see how someone's turn could be a lot longer than 5 minutes, and a bunch of those turns is going to make this game way longer than 30 to 45 minutes. With 2 players, not a big deal at all, especially since the middle section will be relatively untouched by the time we get back to you. But with 3 to 4 players, there could be 2 or maybe 3 big combo turns in a row, and then you can't really plan your turn too well because one of the players could just easily wipe the middle. However, if you're playing this game seriously to win, we can't really see the multiplayer being bad at all mechanically, since you gotta be tracking the quantities of each tile and fish. And it's super easy to see your opponent's boards too. Like specifically, say you're thinking of committing to the Sealife where you have to make a shape. Well, you want to see how feasible that is with the remaining coral and fish colors before you start placing any tile. All tiles are immovable once placed after all. Yeah, for a lot of 3 to 4 player groups, we wouldn't be surprised that your first game take 90 plus minutes. I could definitely see it happening. Scoring! Now it's time for a recommender score on Shallow Sea, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons, with the caveat of whether or not this shallow sea, coral reef, tile laying Euro is even a good idea in the first place. And so, this is gonna get a 10 out of 10! It's a 10 out of 10! It's a masterpiece! Yeah, it's really good. And it's also gonna get a shelf size certified from me for being such a standout. Yeah, if you like shorter-ish tile-laying Euros with a high skill ceiling, definitely try this, or just buy it. I mean, the brain-burning action can happen right away, the game will never overstay its welcome, and the board is so easy to track despite all the choices. It's just extremely little friction to get into the juice of it all.
Oh, and I get a seashell back?
You do, yes.
And then...
You can keep going if you want.
Yes, okay, I see how this is played now.
Now it is quite low conflict, like you can't go hire a pirate attack squad to burn down someone else's coral reef, but you can have a lot of hate grab interaction, especially 1v1 with the high skill ceiling. Like, hey, you're seeing a orange requirement and no fish on it. And then we found that people will actively voice they need Finding Nemo now, so you grab it before they can. Or someone needs these specific sea life orientations really badly, so you just take it and have it chill there on your board for partial VP. Or someone else wants certain colors, so you just clear it. Haha. Yeah, you might be spending a bit with the seashell spend, but you're hurting the opponent a bit more. Anyways, Shallow Sea has really blown us away. Like, it basically doesn't do anything badly. Gets to the puzzling ASAP to get those fishies out to the right area. Oh shoot, why did I put that fish there when it's clogging up that coral for being completed? Sometimes you just can't do everything by the time those 17 tiles are placed. And that's even where the partial completion of Sealife comes in. You cannot waste time in this game, it doesn't waste time, there's no wasted actions. In 1v1, you could probably get this under 30 minutes and it would be still quite a deep game. The seashell design of comboing multiple things on a turn really reminded us of Wondrous Creatures, another game by the same designer and team that was a much more complex worker placement with lots of cards in hand to play. That was a lot more complex with the tableau building, it was a lot longer, and needed a lot more setup and takedowns. Shallow Sea has a similar feeling of gaining the combo juiciness and spending it. So if you really like what's going on in this game, check out Wondrous Creatures too. Another thing that is really similar in time length is the evergreen Splendor, which is certainly much simpler and shorter to play, and leans way more into the engine building. Shallow Sea is more about identifying the right opening for a fish, trying to mitigate the RNG well in the middle, and then panicking about flipping Sealife as your board quickly gets filled up. Yeah, this game is really, really good, and it's probably going to be one of the best produced games we covered this entire year. And at the end of the game, you get to finish with a nice, beautiful reef in front of you. Isn't that so wholesome? My personal score for Shallow Sea is going to be a 7 out of 10. I have a good time with it. Now, I was debating bringing this to an 8 out of 10 because, as you've seen in this review, this game has such good design. However, with the lack of direct conflict and the game starting to feel a little bit too similar over time, I mean, you're always filling up 17 tiles with 17 actions, and yeah, the board state is always going to look completed at the end. Yeah, there wasn't just enough here to get to the great level. But hey, that's exactly why we have the shelf side certified label, because I just respect this game too darn much. Stuff I already said, it looks beautiful, touching it is great, and solving your puzzling ASAP is super rewarding. I actually like how there's only 2 objectives to worry about, because in a bunch of Euros, there's like 4 objectives, and I kind of just zone out half of them when the game is already giving you so many ways to score points anyways. And then I just want a little bit more unpredictability in game flow, and while the seashell spending does make turns feel different, especially when you spend seashells before you grab tiles, and it is satisfying to get the perfect seashell spend to flip 2 things suddenly for more seashells, it just doesn't vary vary up the structure that much. Varied structure usually comes with conflict or just a Euro with a way more complicated turn structure and engine building. But yeah, that's not what this game is. And compared to more complicated Euros that have insanely annoying setup and takedown, I just can't help but be impressed by Shallow Sea. Like with all the tile flipping, I of course had to remember Brass Birmingham, of which has a much more enjoyable gameplay loop for me, as you have to manage economy and connections between locations, making the flipping and tiles go from enjoyable to like crack. And juggling the different metals and seeing how the game evolves from the canal versus the rail age is cool. But Brass Birmingham is like 3 to 4 times longer than Shallow Sea. Like I'm pretty sure its setup is already 10 plus minutes as opposed to Shallow Sea's like 2 minutes. So yeah, this is something that I'm not going to be actively bringing up to play soon, but I don't know if I'm going to get rid of this. I think I'm actually going to hold on to this one. It's pretty impressive and maybe I could whip it out on some game night. Yeah, its 1v1 is quite pleasurable. Still not quite 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10. That's it for Shallow Sea. Let me know what you think. Thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible, especially the Mad Lads of Cardboard. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye. Yeah, bye-bye for now. Bye-bye. Oh, we also have written reviews of this game in the description below on our website. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what games are similar to this. Should check it out.
I feel like there's a very high skill ceiling to this.
Like really high.
I'm just kind of guesstimating, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it worked out. Okay.
That's the thing, like, I feel like if you delay or flip a turn, doesn't matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is a little nicer.